This short video will look at the circulatory systems, the bits that go with it, and it will focus on how to answer exam questions based around this concept. So the best way to use this video is to go follow the link below, download the broken up exam question on circulation, go through the video, make sure at certain points you pause it if needs be, then go and fill out the shorter answer questions on the activity sheet, which you can then use to go and help you build up long answer exam questions or exam answers on the circulatory system, which will help improve your exam technique. So, the first thing that we're going to focus on are the three types of blood vessels that we find in the body. So the first one that we're going to look at are the arteries. So the arteries are carrying oxygenated blood away from the heart. Because they're carrying blood directly away from the heart, the pressure inside these arteries is going to be relatively high. So therefore, they're going to need a thick wall. So we start off with a basement layer, right? So an endothelium layer. This is made out of flattened cells that are nice and smooth. This means that we're reducing the friction of the blood so it can move through easily. Underneath that, we've got some connective tissue and then some elastic tissue. Right, the elastic tissue will allow the arteries to expand ever so slightly when the heart is contracting and the pressure is highest. This helps stop the artery from breaking apart and pulls it back in. Underneath that, we've got a relatively thick layer of muscle cells, which will allow the lumen of the artery, so the lumen of the artery is the space that the blood is travelling through, to either be widened or lowered, so it helps go and control blood pressure. Leading back to the heart, so carrying deoxygenated blood to the heart, are veins. In the veins, there is a relatively low blood pressure. So therefore, its main adaptation is that it has valves. Valves are there to prevent backflow. So backflow would be when the blood travelled in the wrong direction. So the valves are there to help it travelling in the correct direction. Because it's got a low blood pressure, it's got a relatively wide lumen. It's got some connective tissue and some elastic tissue. It's also got a very, very thin layer of muscle tissue, but nowhere near as thick as the arteries. The main thing that's forcing blood back up the veins is the fact that the veins wrap around other muscles, so when other muscles in your body are contracting, it kind of pushes the blood along the veins. Third type of blood vessels are the capillaries. So the capillaries are where exchange of materials, so exchange of gases, for instance, carbon dioxide and oxygen, and exchange of nutrients, so glucose and minerals and such forth, is happening. The capillaries lie in what are called capillary beds and go in and supply your organs, your muscles and the rest of your body. They've got a very, very narrow lumen which forces the blood cells to travel through single file. So this means that we're almost increasing the surface area of the blood vessels of the individual cells because they're being flattened out. The wall of the capillaries is only 1 cell thick, therefore there is a short diffusion distance. Because there is a short diffusion distance, that will go and speed up the rate of diffusion. The heart goes and pumps the blood around the body. Right, you'll need to know for GCSE biology the basic way that the blood is travelling around the heart. So we start off, deoxygenated blood travels into the heart through the vena cava. It travels into the right atrium. As the right atrium contracts, that forces open a valve and forces it into the right ventricle. As the right ventricle contracts, the blood is forced up to the lungs where it's going to pick up oxygen, so become oxygenated through the pulmonary artery. It's worth noting that the pulmonary artery is the only artery in your body that carries deoxygenated blood. After the blood has travelled to the lungs and become oxygenated, it travels back down to the left-hand side of the heart through the pulmonary vein. As with the pulmonary artery, the pulmonary vein is the only vein in your body that is carrying oxygenated blood. So the left-hand atrium contracts, forces it through a valve into the left-hand ventricle. The left-hand ventricle contracts and forces the blood up through the aorta, where it travels to the body. It's also worth noting that the width of the muscle layer in the right-hand side is a lot thinner than in the left-hand side, because the right-hand side only needs to pump the blood up to the lungs, whereas the left-hand side needs to go and pump the blood around the rest of the body. So, if we look at all of this as circulation as a whole, the heart starts off, it goes and it pumps blood up through the lungs where it becomes oxygenated. That oxygenated blood travels back down to the heart where it pumps the blood around the arteries to start off with. These arteries lead to a series of capillaries. The capillaries go through muscles, they go through organs and the rest of the body. The blood will then go and travel back up to the heart through a series of veins. So finally, on your sheet there are 3 questions that you need to work through. First question is to describe the route taken by oxygenated blood from the lungs to the body. It's important to remember that you are only talking about the blood coming back from the lungs, so you need to talk about how it's travelling back to the heart and then to the body cells. So you'll need to talk about how the blood travels from the heart through arteries, then through capillaries. Don't start talking about blood travelling back to the heart, because that is not needed by this question. On your sheet, you have a diagram showing a part of the circulatory system. Using what we've covered on veins, capillaries and arteries, you'll need to go and label or identify those 3 parts. And finally, you need to talk about how the composition of the blood changes as it flows through a certain part of the heart and a part of the circulatory system. Remember, the important things to talk about: is it losing oxygen? Is it gaining oxygen? Is it gaining carbon dioxide? Is it losing carbon dioxide? What nutrients will be transferred at that certain point? And in the capillaries, what adaptations are there to enable efficient exchange of materials? So, at any point, go back, rewatch the video, pause at certain points if you're not sure. Make sure that you've downloaded and have a go at the accompanying activity that goes with it. Any comments or questions, please leave them below. And finally, thanks for watching.